Here we go. There we go. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the Holston Science and Manufacturing Cluster. This is the first meeting we've had for quite a long time. It's been a real shame. We were doing some great stuff with this network in 2019. We were doing factory tours, we were having presentations, and it was developing into a really solid group with a stronger voice, because obviously manufacturing and SaaS is so important in our area. Unfortunately, we had great plans in place for 2020. We were very excited about what we got on the agenda, and unfortunately COVID really put an end to that. So this group hasn't really met this year, so this is the inaugural meeting of the year, and what we're really keen to do really is to touch base with the manufacturing cluster again and really find out what we need to be doing as a group to support manufacturing and science businesses across this area, because it is such a key sector for the prosperity of all of us. So welcome, and let me start the slideshow, that would help. So I'd like to welcome you all. We will be doing these events regularly, and if you tell us what you want us to do, we will look to provide it. I'd like to introduce Brendan Bilton, who is our chair of this group, who is going to manage today's proceedings. Over to you, Brendan.
Well, thank you, Rachel. Good morning, everybody. And yes, and also a big thank you to Rachel and Jane for setting and arranging this virtual meeting. Just picking up on what Rachel said earlier, the whole idea of this network is to develop themes that are relevant to local businesses. So we really, really do appreciate your feedback about what else we can do to provide support and help during these difficult times. And I think this morning we've chosen a range, just a couple of subject areas to kick the network off in this COVID time. And you know, we were planning to do an event every 2 months, and as Rachel said, they were based around visits, so people could get to see what other companies were doing and how they operated, and to really generate lots of things for the supply chain, as well as the original equipment manufacturers and the developers. And also a big part of what we're trying to do is also to encourage further use of training facilities and other learning best practice from other people. So whilst that might not be the main aim for this current time, what we wanted to try and do is focus on things that we think can help businesses survive this particular challenge, and also to come out the other end in a better and healthier state. And I think the first presentation, Surviving the New Normal, will be a great help there. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Dan and Andrew from the Virtual Engineering Centre, and also a big thank you to ABGI, who have continued their sponsorship of the network through this time that's enabled us to do this. So thank you very much, Russell.
Thanks, Brendan. Right, my name's Andrew Borland. I'm here with Dan Bradley. We're from the Virtual Engineering Centre. The VEC is part of the University of Liverpool, and we're one of the leading centres for industrial digitisation in the UK. The centre itself has been working with SMEs and supply chains and OEMs for over 10 years. And over the last 4 years, we've been working with SMEs in the region under the LCR4 project, along with our partners at LJMU and SCFC and the Growth Platform, to help SMEs adopt Industry 4 technologies. Since then, since LCR4's finished, we've moved on to digital strategy, and that's kind of what we're here to talk to you today about. We've entitled the presentation Return, Restart, Repurpose, and the focus is going to be less on technology and more on the sort of the bigger picture strategy on how you can use digital tools and how you can look at digital transformation as a thread within your wider business strategy, which is really important at the moment. So we know manufacturing never really went away. 90% of manufacturing businesses have stayed open during the COVID lockdown. But we think now's a great time to talk about this, because we are kind of stopping the firefighting and coming in and restarting and looking at what the near-term opportunities are. So Dan's going to talk a little bit about the return process. I'm going to talk a little bit about restarting strategy for both the near term and the long term, which is our repurpose bit, is looking at how you can add value going forward, and open up new opportunities from your existing skill sets and assets, and how digital can help with that. So move slides on again. So digital really as an enabler for strategy, focusing on this kind of post-COVID world and anticipating Brexit, and really what we can do from there. So over to Dan. Sorry, before I go over to Dan, so the negatives and positives, COVID has had many negatives. We've had disruption to demand, we've had order books drying up, we've had absenteeism, and sort of the usual hits to cash flow. But on the positive side, manufacturing has proven that you can remain functioning during this period, that manufacturing was the first industry to sort of really embrace the remote working for support services. By necessity, manufacturing was the first industry to put the social distancing in place within the working environment to keep the business going. And there are government funding schemes and support schemes that are coming out and are available, as well as the bank schemes to help us get through this. But manufacturing ultimately has proved its agility and responsiveness, whether that's kind of the pivot to manufacturing PPE, or whether that's been the kind of the SMEs in the UK embracing the call for the ventilator challenge earlier on the year. Manufacturing has a lot to be proud of, and there's a lot of cause for optimism, as we know we've survived one thing, and now's the time to kind of take stock and see how we can grow and move forward. So over to Dan.
Thanks, Andrew. So really echoing where Andrew finished there, that I'd just like to say kind of well done to the manufacturing groups and businesses in the region. So as part of my work with the LCR4 Start project, where we're supporting businesses with their digital strategy, along with our partners at STFC, LGMU and the Growth Platform, I've had the privilege to visit a lot of regional manufacturing businesses over the summer and more recently. And my experience has been that many of them barely skipped a beat, that orders needed to be filled, that supplies needed to come in, that businesses adapted their methods of working to the situation and got on with it, producing the things that the country needs. And at least as of, I think, 3 weeks ago, when this survey was done by UK Manufacturing Outlook, the outlook for manufacturers was flat or positive, and expecting to close the gap between where we were at the start of the year by the end of this year. So now I'd like to launch our first Zoom poll.
There we go.
Which is brilliant. Not that there was any doubt that was going to work. Which, if you could fill that in your own time, should be anonymous, and is just seeing whether the businesses that are here at today's meeting agree with that sentiment, that investment, jobs and output are likely to either increase or stay the same over the time period. And we'll come back to that in a few minutes once you've had a chance to answer it. But there is a lot of overhead in this new world in terms of reassuring your staff that you're looking after them, in terms of keeping your commitments to health and safety and your legal obligations in place. And appropriate digital tools can help reduce the pain. And I just want to pluck one out for you. So, sorry. So it can be challenging for anybody to keep up to date with the health and safety changes, and today's not an auspicious day to be discussing this. But the people who've had this kind of job lumped on top of them now, in addition to the tasks they were doing when they had busy jobs in January, there are digital tools that can support them. For me, digitalization and making use of digital tools is always about having that actionable information seamlessly available with minimal overhead. So for example, if you're trying to make sense of the evolving health and safety environment for businesses, apps like iAuditor, which is a freemium model, and there are plenty of other alternatives, maintains a up-to-date database of the current advice for sectors such as science and laboratories or factories, based on government advice, turns that into checklists and auditable documents that you can go through in your workplace to show your staff that you're taking their concerns seriously, to show that you have been compliant and to record what you've been doing, and to take some of that administrative burden of just keeping on top of the changes away from your staff and put it onto a digital application. So being aware that whenever there's a need, thousands of developers are working on digital tools, and many of them offer free or freemium models for you to try to take some of the weight off you is a good place to start when thinking about digital and a relatively low risk proposition, low investment proposition. The disruption is ongoing, and in some ways it is getting worse. And so beyond kind of the firefighting tools, I'm just going to take through a few kind of concepts of digital tools which I think would be beneficial even in normal times, but firms have found to be especially useful during COVID. So an example of a previous project where the VEC has been involved is using factory scanning, modeling and simulation to understand the manufacturing workspace. Now this work was done pre-COVID, and the purpose of it was to be able to plan optimized production without disrupting current operations. And the business that we were working with through implementing a factory scan, a modeling and a simulation, and then digitally representing the factory environment and being able to test new ways of working before those without disrupting the operations. That business, as a result of that project, was able to see significant productivity increases and capacity increases without any additional investment, simply by restructuring the way people worked within their existing workspace using existing machinery. And with COVID, companies that already have these assets have been able to use them to simply draw a 2-meter radius around workstations and assess whether under the 2-meter social distancing, anything needed to be changed or small changes could be made in order to make safer operating environments for their staff, or increase capacity, or at least maximize capacity, even if where you were working with a reduced headcount within the building for safety reasons. And it's important here, this could look like a very daunting process. Clearly, this has been done in detail. There's CAD assets there for all what look like CNC machines and workstations. But it's important to know that digitization is most useful for the companies who haven't done any of it yet. It's not that you have to be a digital savvy company who has a good starting point, who's been doing this for 20 years. If you feel like you've missed the boat and are perhaps even embarrassed as to the quality of the assets that you have available, you're the kind of business that can most benefit from taking the first steps of digitalization. And this here is just an example of achieving the same thing, but without a firm having any pre-existing assets, somebody coming in with a LiDAR scanner and getting that building information from scratch to work on factory simulation or safety planning or any other purpose where that data would be of use. But it's not all about the expensive stuff. In fact, it's initially rarely about the expensive stuff. And to finish where I started with this, there are huge numbers of free tools, or for example, with Microsoft 365, tools that it's possible your business is already paying for that have great capacity to digitalize your work processes. What I would say is if at the moment in 2020 as a business leader, you don't have 24/7 access on any device that you want in a secure manner to backed up data for all of your routine core business functions, whether that be finance, production, orders, there's a sense in which you are doing something wrong. The tools there are available and accessible. And for example, if you're with a legacy bank that requires you to go and visit their premises to do business or to phone somebody up, there are business banks available and that will seamlessly integrate with your accounting software, that will seamlessly integrate with your ordering software. There are tools which will take all your receipts in and process that for you and give you a far more frictionless business environment. And the companies that had that in place before the original lockdown saw great benefit in the fact that where previously to get a piece of information, they would perhaps just shout to somebody on the shop floor or lean over to their lead finance, their desk outside their office, when suddenly individuals might be self-isolating, might have caring responsibilities. Having those digital tools where information is always available to those who need it without having to shout somebody on the shop floor was a great advantage to those businesses in their continuity of operations. And before I hand back to Andrew, we can perhaps close this first poll.
And share the results.
Yeah, so that looks to me like good news and broadly consistent with the national picture. So on average, more of you have confidence in the businesses expanding in the future than contracting. I think we'll come back to this in the Q&A and discussion session at the end, and perhaps carry on these polls into social media. So if we could launch the second poll, please, Jane.
Yep, there we go.
So in terms of what still is causing pain, we've tried to think of the key features. Unfortunately, there isn't an option in Zoom to add your own. So in your own time, if you could, and you can select as many as you want, say which of those is still causing problems to your business as of October. And now I'll pass back over to Andrew.
Thanks, Dan. Right, so when we're talking about restarting, we're thinking about kind of two main aspects. We're thinking about the strategy for the business in the short to medium term is that you may now be waking up in a world or entering a world where you're not necessarily in the same business you were in 12 months ago, or you're not necessarily in the same markets that you thought you would be in at this point. Lots of UK manufacturers looking to nearshore supply chains. There's much more awareness of the need for visibility within your supply chain and knowing what's going on and having plan Bs and alternative links in. So we're looking at people taking the breath, thinking, what are the new opportunities for me? What capabilities do I have in the business, both sort of staff and hardware and infrastructure, relationships with suppliers, and sales capability and the client base. So where am I now? So you're in this phase where you're looking at that as a business strategy. So the idea is to look at sort of from top down for vision and bottom up for delivery. So as a leader within the business, where are the opportunities? What has worked well through COVID? What have you done well? What is the opportunity and where is the demand going forward? And also what's not worked well. So a lot of people were able to homeshore support services quite easily, but had difficulty with engaging with suppliers. So are the digital tools that can help you with that? We've got SharePoint and sort of the various office suites that have helped us do the back end services bit, but on the actual kind of shop floor stuff, digital integration can be a lot more difficult. But that shouldn't in itself, that legacy challenge shouldn't in itself stop you from trying to achieve a vision. So first of all, resetting the vision going forward. What do you want to do? Then looking at the technology. So the technology always follows the business. The digital strategy should follow the business strategy. So we're looking at how we can use data better, how we can possibly maybe move into things like new product development. So as stands, we've seen a lot of companies pivot to meet new demands. So if you're looking at developing a new product, is there an existing skill set within your design team? Can you take existing traditional kind of CAD work and turn that very quickly into a digital PDF or a virtual prototype that you can send out remotely to new or potential clients to support the sales function? So your salespeople will be possibly engaging remotely over Teams, over Zoom, and your design guys may be able to say, look, we can provide prototypes and proofs virtually that you can send out to help close the deal, and the skills may already be there. It'll help you speed up the relationship of rebuilding, of the process of rebuilding the order books. From there, you can also then sort of look at, possibly this is the first time you may look at adopting additive manufacturing. So looking at 3D printing to get past that virtual prototyping stage, the rapid prototyping stage, where you can 3D print some mock-ups for tooling, you can 3D print some finished products and send them out to people and say, look, you know, is this what we're after? You know, is this an opportunity to produce a new product? With supply chains, sort of SAP and so the usual suites that we've got on ERP and things like that can give you supply chain visibility, but working with suppliers is as much a kind of interactive, qualitative relationship as it is about the numbers. So looking at potentially getting better visibility of supply chains, is there an opportunity to take something as simple as kind of CSV files out of Excel or dumps out of existing software you've got, and use functionality within Microsoft Office, kind of the Power BI suite, to hash together your own little portals that give you better supply chain visibility, both sort of for your main industry, but also within your manufacturing clusters on the industrial estate. You might need some inputs that somebody else has got on the shelf that they're not using, so you can create those sort of marketplaces and microeconomies there. So really making the most of the capacity you've got as you move forward, and the capacity and skills others sort of within your networks have got, and digital can provide that. The investment piece is it's as much about thinking whether you can afford not to do something as looking at whether you can afford to invest in something. The investment is as much in people as it is in equipment. The banks and governments are at least saying they're keen to lend, so now may be an ideal opportunity to look at investing in digital projects. Northwest has got one of the highest sort of instances outside the Southwest of people who are in a development or rollout stage of an industrial digitization project. So there's lots of projects that have been scoped that are ready and sort of raring to go and be rolled out. So that's during this restart phase. So we're thinking about the short term, thinking about survival and pivoting around, and how digital can help us do that. So looking at where the investments can be made, looking at whether you're going to have a broad or a narrow focus going forward. Is the opportunity in this short term to really kind of double down on a narrow sort of range of products? Or are you looking at focusing potentially on an existing market, or even a new market that you weren't in, and saying, look, that's where the opportunity is, that's where the orders are going to come from. How can digital help with that? Or is it going to be a sort of a broad brush approach? Again, digital helping, digital marketing tools helping gain sort of new insights to new markets and client bases, allowing you to build networks and connections faster. Sort of things that the B2C companies, marketing agencies, that kind of thing have been doing for many years and gotten very good at. There are tools out there, web portals and web services, that can help you sort of embrace that digital marketing dimension very quickly, even for a B2B operation. And then there's the elements of the short-term strategy of, where is your value coming from? Are you looking at being a cost leader? Have you discovered that actually you've got the skills and the tools to be able to produce products very, very cheaply, and that's where your advantage is going to come from? Or is there something else about you that differentiates you? Is it the quality of your relationships, the quality of the product, approvals, processes, skill of the design team? Where is that value coming from, and how can you use digital to capitalize on that within the short term? So that's the kind of the piece for thinking about strategy. The other side of digital to think about during this sort of short to medium phase as we're restarting is the planning and the resilience, is business continuity, disaster recovery. A lot of people have kind of learnt the hard way as we very quickly moved to that home working situation, that they didn't have particularly great business continuity or disaster recovery plans in place. But digital makes it so much easier to be able to do that, to put your BC plan in place. You've already had a dry run, you've had the worst of test runs at seeing what worked and what didn't. So looking at what worked and what didn't, and how digital can help you overcome distances, geography and social distancing. What can be automated? What legacy systems are in the business that just couldn't be automated? Is that where you want to focus? Ultimately, any machine tool, any system, it comes down to the noughts and ones. There will be data on it. It may not be that easy to integrate into a modern workflow, an automated workflow, but help is available. There will be a way to jury rig it at the very worst. The supply chain monitoring, sort of mentioned earlier, is just looking at what's the most effective solution. It doesn't need to be sort of the most expensive SAP system or sort of all singing, all dancing. What do you need to improve that supply chain visibility? I think the Make UK report said that sort of 35% of SMEs are now much more aware of the need for them to monitor their supply chain beyond their immediate link. So it's no longer just enough that you monitor sort of the upstream and downstream immediate suppliers and customers, but it's people further down the chain that you also need to be aware of as well. On logistics, there's new developments out there trying to bring kind of the Uber economy to the logistics and freight side of things. So overcoming sort of the challenges of possibly smaller orders and less visibility and demand for kind of faster turnaround. There are technologies out there that are available that can help with that. And then sort of the BC and disaster recovery plans, start with the plan and then go looking for the technology is the thing we would say. So coming back to kind of digital strategy, we spent 4 years working with SMEs, helping them adopt digital tools and do the sort of the hardware and the proofing side. And now as the VEC and as the LCR4 project with our partners at STFC and LJMU and the growth platform in Liverpool, we're looking at this strategy piece. So we're engaging with SMEs, trying to sort of sit down with them and say, sort of blank piece of paper, where are you, what do you want to achieve, what are your challenges, and why haven't you sort of address them sooner, what's holding you back, and then looking at how digital can help, whether that's sort of from direct support from us or from support from chambers or others. There's help available, and digital is really an enabler to the business going forward rather than the central thread. So if we just sort of flip over to a couple of case studies on the next slide. So sort of accelerated digital transformation, we've got a couple of case studies for you, PSW into integrity and a project we did with Sellafield. The Sellafield case studies are a nice one to talk about remote working. So we flip over again. So Sellafield is an example of quite a complicated, high-value piece of machinery which you really need to know what you're doing before you get on it. So we developed a mixed reality simulator for them. So that was a project we did with the VEC, which we co-developed to allow them to improve their training process. So sort of cutting-edge technology, but drawing on existing CAD designs and business process. And the outcome there being to provide the ability for remote training and progression and a pedagogy for kind of monitoring and approvals. So allowing us to access the virtual environment for people to practice on business critical bit of kit, which was a crane for a high risk environment. So the outcomes of that being to improve safety, expand skills, and enable more people to get trained up on that piece of kit. So you offset your risk there a little bit and speed up the progression of the training process. One of the stats I saw on sort of robotics are often seen as displacing jobs. That the evidence actually shows that robotics help grow businesses. So you improve job security and you also improve salaries as staff become focused on more high value work. But typically, even with some of the more complicated robotics, it's about 80 hours of training to get somebody skilled up on an asset that can potentially offer a lot of productivity improvement. So digital's a nice way to shortcut that and overcome the distances of geography. The impact of the Sellafield project was 20 million saving to the business, as well as reducing training time, increasing that productivity, and it went on to win a nuclear industry award. But it doesn't need to be as complicated as that. Your digital designs can be rolled in with things like Zoom and remote learning. You can overcome distances of geography if it's a fitter or trainer, somebody who's fitting a bit of kit. If you're training somebody up on a new product, or if you're looking at maintaining it remotely, you can have somebody at the end of a Zoom call whilst also sending out augmented reality apps to help guide somebody through. So you've got these interactive sort of VR or AR Haynes manuals to help take people through the process, and you can map onto that, or you can use servicing and approvals as well. So really, one asset can be sweated for many different purposes. There's also a big move towards manufacturing having a support service as involved, as well as the physical products, and that might be an opportunity for you to differentiate yourself in the market, and an opportunity to roll into the strategy to open up new markets as well as new revenue streams. Is to say, look, we're not just giving you the product, there's also a support service that goes with it. Sort of in the time of COVID, we don't need physical access, we don't need sort of hands-on direct engagement with you. We can talk you through installation, maintenance, training, and ongoing sort of approvals remotely using these digital tools. So that was Sellafield. I think if we hand over to the PSW now for Dan.
Thank you, Andrew. Before I get on to those two messages that I want to bring in my second section today, Jane, would you be able to close that second poll?
Yep. And if I share the results.
Yeah. So you can see there that the top three things still causing pain, at least for the people in the virtual room, are event cancellation, restricted UK travel, and reduced customer demands. It's interesting that the event cancellations come up top. I mean, the VC are working at the moment with a couple of Liverpool companies who are trying to bring back trade events in a virtual environment, but in a way that is effective in bringing sales and those soft interpersonal interactions that can generate sales at trade events. But it's, to an extent, for us, good to see that's a priority for at least the businesses in the room. Close that. So two messages from me. So the first is that although a lot of the things that are being done to cope with COVID may seem COVID specific, most of the benefits of those digitalizations in terms of remote working, access to data, will have long-lasting benefits for most businesses well beyond the current crisis. So currently, as part of LCR Start, we are working with a company called PSW Integrity, who are an engineering services company supporting the oil and gas sector. Now, they're, as this part of their business, their traditional model would have been a piece of equipment is broken or fails or needs service on a oil rig somewhere or a gas rig. That's engineers from the UK getting on a plane, flying to Nigeria, getting out on a helicopter, going out into the Niger Delta, fixing what needs fixing or servicing what needs servicing, and then coming back. Over several years, PSW have been pursuing a digital strategy of trying to deliver as much as they can remotely, using their engineers based in the UK to support staff already on site to deliver that, and using a variety of sort of modern digital technologies such as shared reality, augmented reality, in order to support that in a safe and then reliable way. Now, that has been a boon for them during COVID, in that when international travels become incredibly difficult, they can carry on their business. But that wasn't the purpose of being able to deliver services remotely. It was to increase the productivity of their engineering team, decrease their operating costs, be able to expand their market by reducing their charges to their customers, improving their employee work-life balance, spending less time on planes and hotel rooms, and reducing their environmental impact. As a company that's trying to move towards a zero net carbon future, minimizing the amount of air travel, road travel, helicopter travel is a key way of reducing the net total emissions of the company. So on any scale, though, I mean, that's a very sort of a big example, but every event that can be attended virtually, as long as that's an effective attendance that gets what you want from the event, every piece of information that doesn't end up getting printed off and put in a bin somewhere, every time that a machine can be shut down when it's not being used and reduce its energy costs, all these things will be affecting the bottom line. They will be good during COVID, but they'll also be good across the board going forward for your business. So many of the things that could look like COVID digitalization will in fact be good long-term investments for many businesses. And secondly, and this is something I would never have occurred to me before I started this job, is the untapped skills of workforces. So a lot of the digital skills that you would like to have in order to de-risk and smooth the process of adopting a digital strategy or digital technology may already be available unknown to you within your existing workforce. People obviously have lives outside their job and outside of the task that they're doing, and many people with hobbies or pastimes may include things like additive manufacturing in the form of 3D printing, any kind of modeling hobby, or for example, remote controlled aircraft or kart racing. Many of these things will now incorporate high technology skills such as additive manufacturing. People might be playing VR games at home and killing zombies in their VR headset. People might have a drone at home that they use for and wildlife photography. They may just be interested in digital photography. Many people now have side hustles, terrible phrase, for example, running an eBay business or a blog or selling jewelry and maintaining their own WordPress website. If you're a traditional engineering company, and I appreciate many of the people in this business are in the more high-tech end, it's still worth trying to get to know what the outside work skills of your staff are. And the reason that I have the Heap & Partners case study running in the background is one of the key enablers of their move into using additive manufacturing initially for sales and then for virtual prototyping was that they had a member of staff who, incidentally, in his spare time, was using a small kind of hobby scale plastics 3D printer, but therefore had the skills and the interest in that technology to rapidly move to something that could offer real value for the business and has been a big driver of their growth. So before you think that all digital adoption will require an expensive technologist or consultant to come in and support you, it's probably worth checking whether anybody within your current organization already has skills that will make that process smoother and easier for you. And I will hand back to Andrew for repurpose.
Thanks, Dan. Right, so the repurposing sort of side of things that we want to talk about is basically looking at the longer term. So a little bit of a revisit of the same sort of thinking you'll have gone through with the restarting, but with a view to longer term investments and longer term growth. If we're kind of going to dig ourselves out of the whole COVID, collectively we need to look for growth. Growth and productivity are the two things that are going to help any business and help the economy sort of move forward and progress. So if we just scan the slides across twice. Cool. So we're looking for the value drivers. We're looking for what has COVID shown you that within the business you have the assets and the capabilities to do, and how is that likely to fit into the new normal in the longer term. So COVID will have a lasting effect on global industry and global trade. So too will Brexit. Brexit opens up a lot of opportunities for export, and jointly they've fostered a kind of real interest in the assuring supply chains. So going forward, where are the value drivers for you? Is it in your new markets? Is it in your old markets? Is it through that race to the bottom and just getting more product out there, or is it through some differentiating on some other sort of value creator that people come to you for? And how does digital fit in with that? You've survived the new normal, now looking towards the future. How do you prioritize that? So we've talked about starting off with the business need. We've talked about sort of letting digital strategy serve as an enabler for that, but then it's a case of establishing priorities in the longer term, the 5-10 year vision for the business. What are the nice to haves? What are the challenges? What are the things you want to do? And then turning to the shop floor and saying, look, you know, what technologies are out there? What would you guys want to work with? What's stopping you from pursuing these avenues and engaging with external support to do that? For digital strategy, the main barriers are skills, legacy compatibility, finance, technical knowledge, and culture. Most of that is kind of about people. There may be skills within the business that are ancillary. People have skills that you don't know about that could be retooled to help the business grow. Technical knowledge can be brought in. You can open up new services, things like predictive maintenance using IoT can be added to products, and you can make the case for investment to shareholders, to banks, to financiers, to grant funding bodies to say there is a business opportunity. We can see a return on investment. Let's fund a new post. Let's bring some new skill setting to the business. With that, there's a culture change. Is we're looking at making sure that we make the most of all of our assets. We're not just talking about the assets in terms of physical infrastructure and kit, but to take a slightly more startup mentality going forward as to what do you have that other people don't have. It'll be your business relationships. It'll be your contacts, your networks, your customers, your suppliers. They're as much an asset as your staff and your infrastructure and everything that comes under the roof is. So how do you then sort of roll all that into a change process? How do you get the culture turned around within the business to say, look, we're looking at investing in new technologies. The look of the business may change slightly. We're doing new things for the first time, but it's still the same company. And how can you help people embrace that change of culture by saying, we're not looking at displacing jobs, we're not looking at bringing in increasing automation to put anyone out of a job, whether that be robotics on the shop floor or automated back office systems. What we're looking at doing is driving productivity. UK gets a kind of a bad rep for our poor productivity in manufacturing. We see lots of statistics on how we fall behind the Germans. But between 1997 and 2007, before the global financial crisis, the government estimated that we improved productivity by 50%. So that was a big leap inside of 10 years, and we can do that again, and particularly using digital skills. So looking towards that piece of saying, look, we can improve productivity if we embrace digital. If we have a vision for the business for growth, and we look at using digital as an enabler for that, and carrying the team and the workforce along with you, looking at making use of government schemes and making use of further higher education skills and training to reskill people that you got within the business, bringing in some of those sort of bright young things that are going to give that element of new digital skills to the business, and putting the culture towards one where you're investing in people alongside the technology to grow the business and move forward. So if we move on to sort of penultimate slide. So Heap and Partners is a great example of that. Heap and Partners originally came to us with a problem with stock control. So they were looking at a manual process for part of their approvals, where they were filling out spreadsheets and paper notes of serial numbers for subcomponents. So we started off with Heap and Partners looking at using machine learning in vision algorithms to be able to identify the part numbers so that we could automate that process for them. That then led them on to questioning whether they could potentially use additive manufacturing and augmented reality. Augmented reality is a way to demonstrate as part of the sales process to their clients how their products were better than the competition, and the novelty of the functionality, which was really difficult to do when you're carting around a 30-kilo valve assembly. But with an AR app that they could take out on an iPad or a digital PDF that they could email out, it allowed them to expand and blow up the product and have a cutaway view and interact, which improved the sales process, also improved the product development process. And from there, they then sort of said, well, it wouldn't be that difficult to do some 3D printing. We kind of helped them appreciate that they had the skills in the design office to embrace additive manufacturing. Within a week of getting their first 3D printer, the MD went in and saw it running and assumed that the team were messing around, knocking up some prototypes, and they're actually using the printer to fulfill orders. That's how quickly they managed to embrace the new technology. And now they're looking at moving forward with further products and integration and online kind of service and things. So that was a company that was in something as traditional as valve manufacturing, but has since moved in to provide a whole range of digital services and really embrace digital within the business. So that's the impetus for looking at repurposing is really start with the assets you have. Think about how digital can help you, and have the vision for the future of looking at where you want to grow and where you want to be competitive going forward. And I think we've got our final slide. And one more, and then we're back to the key points here. We've not talked about technology. We've deliberately sort of avoided boring you with IoT or AI or details of additive manufacturing or autonomous systems. But they're all enablers, and they've had a place in returning to business. They will help you with the strategy for the short term with restarting, and they're essential thread for the long-term strategy of growth, and maybe looking at repurposing what you've got to fuel growth in the future. That's all, I think.
Thanks, Andrew. And if we could have the third poll, Jane. And then from us, really just to say, Andrew and I have obviously covered an awful lot of ground here, but the point is that alongside people like the chambers and the government agencies that are available, we are here to support businesses in our region with additional ideas. Just pick up the phone, drop us an email. If anything here has been of interest to you or your business, the worst it can be is a 10-minute conversation that convinces you that that's not what you want to do. So my contact details are there, but by all means, look at our website, look at the project LCR4 starts if you're in Liverpool City region, and get in touch. Am I handing back to Brendan?
Yes, thank you very much, Dan. Thank you very much, Andrew. A very, very good, informative background and case studies on how digital systems can really transform your business. So thank you very much for that. And we'll have a bit more of a discussion for that in a few minutes. So if we go back to the main menu, what I'd like to do is, I originally was going to give everybody a fantastic briefing on the wonderful schemes, grants and other financial systems that were in place from the government, because the whole thing that when we were putting this event together was that by the end of September, beginning of October, the government was going to have a whole new raft of strategy plans for businesses post-Brexit and post-COVID, and they were all going to be there promoted before the budget in November, and I was going to give you a heads up on what all of those schemes were and how you could access them. Unfortunately, as you realise, the budget's being postponed and all those strategies have been put onto a back burner. So what I thought I'd do is I'd just give a few slides on what is currently available, and then I'll give you my own feelings about what I'm doing, because I'm doing something quite unique for me, but I'll come to that in a second. So first of all, I thought I'd just give a quick review about the initiatives that are available within the region in terms of finance that were in place prior to COVID as well. So there's a various range of loans, and I've just highlighted some of them here. What I'd also like to say is that the Halton Chamber of Commerce, and on a regular basis, give out newsletters where they highlight these schemes. And if you want to find out more about what's available, Rachel and Jane are there to help you identify it. But I thought I'd just give you a list of some of the ones that could be relevant. So the startup loans, this is from £500 to £500,000, and it's for SMEs, and it's for businesses that have been in operation for around about 2 years. So anybody that's got a new business and is struggling to raise finance to keep themselves going in these tough times, this is an area that you can look at doing. And there's a lot of support for this in the Northwest, in the whole of this Northwest region here. The loans can come up with strings attached, which can make it difficult for some people if they've got other investors. But it's certainly something worth looking at, because they're a lot easier to get hold of than trying to convince banks or other capital investors that you need it. There's also a very good one here, the Fair Business Loans. This is for SMEs that are looking to access funding for capital in particular. And it's for SME businesses that find it difficult to raise capital or raise debt with banks and existing lenders. And these loans are fully secured and underwritten by the government. The only requirement is that you need to have been trading for 2 years and have a turnover larger than £150,000. But if your business meets that requirement, you can go into securing a range of unsecured business loans up to about £30,000, which in these times is quite helpful. The thing about it also to remember is that if it's an unsecured loan and it's underwritten by the government, if you are unable to pay it, it doesn't come back onto you as a business owner to pay that debt back. Another one, which is something I think that the government's actually going to expand, and this is the Gigabit Broadband Voucher Scheme, and it's to help SMEs improve their broadband and improve their IT connectivity. These are grants that are available up to about £3,500. Now, it's not quite as simple as it first appears. What they tend to do is to look at getting groups of SMEs in the same area to do the upgrade. But it's certainly something to look at. It's quite easy to access, and if it's something you're planning to do to increase your broadband and digital capability on site, this is really a really good way of getting money towards that to offset the cost of doing it. There's another one as well, which is the Investment Fund in the North of England, formerly the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund. This is really for what we call equity investment. So this is to take a shareholding, and it's open to all of the businesses in the North of England. This is run through. I think it's centralised through Manchester now, but it covers the whole of the Northwest. And the amount of money available is anywhere from about 25,000 up to 2 million. And this is for business expansion. So again, I don't know whether that fits everybody's needs today, but it's certainly something to be aware of when you're if you're looking to change your business and expand into different areas as well. So those are just a few of the ones available, but also there are some specific ones on COVID. I mean, the one, because it's changing all the time, the one to keep up to date with what is available and what is coming down the pipe is the coronavirus benefit support scheme, which is through the UK government, and the website's there. But if it looks a bit too complicated, there's a
We lost Brendan.
We've just lost Brendan. I do apologise. I'm sure he's probably on his way back in. It was bound to have a technical problem when we're talking about digitalisation, weren't we? But I think
sorry,
Brendan.
Yeah,
hello,
sorry about
hi
that.
Brendan.
Hi, I might go for one of those gigabit voucher schemes to try and improve my home connectivity there. Yeah, sorry. So where did I get up to? Where did I get cut out?
It was just you were just going to talk about the pitch, I think.
Yeah. So the pitch is a website for businesses that want to use crowdfunding as a way of supporting their business. And what they've got on their front page is a really good snapshot of all the government incentives available to you as a small business looking to raise or expand facilities. And they've paraphrased everything, and then they give you the direct links to go to that particular page or site on the government. So if you want to keep up to speed with something that's really easy to see and operate, the pitch at that website there is a really, really good way of doing it. And it's simple because, of course, people doing crowdfunding generally don't have the experience of having previous businesses, and they just want to be able to get the money up and running and do things quickly. So it's a really, really helpful support page. And then the last one was really to pick up on some of the stuff that the Virtual Engineering Centre highlighted about what have businesses learned from the COVID challenge. And a really, really good website there is bethebusiness.com. Be the Business is a mentoring organisation. They've got some really high-powered, high-flying people on their board. People have run like John Lewis Partnership. They've got all the senior partners from all the major accountancy companies, KPMG, Ernst & Young, people like that. And they've got some really good case studies about how businesses have changed and what those businesses have done. If you want to get more about that, you can always log in to become part of that network, and you can find out what support the Be the Business can provide to you as a business as well. But it's a really good site there. And another one which is not open to us, but it also is a good way of seeing what can be done, is the Business Gateway, which is the Scottish equivalent really of Be the Business. And that again has got a load of case studies on it about how businesses have modified and adapted to overcome some of the challenges that COVID's presented with them. So those are some really good websites to go and look at and just get some ideas about what you can do and how people have looked at their businesses and changed them to try and overcome the challenges of COVID. And with that, that's really all I've got to say. The The slides are going to be available to everybody from the meeting, so you'll be able to get hold of all those links there. And just like to hand over to Rachel about the upcoming events.
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Brendan. That was really helpful. If anybody would like to know more about the support available, both sort of like very locally, regionally and nationally, please do always give us a ring, speak to your chamber. We'll help everybody ensure that they get the best of the business support that's available across this area, because we're all here to support a thriving industrial base. So there's a couple of things that we've got available at the moment. We're doing forklift truck training on the 5th and 20th November. If you would like to ensure that you've got a trained workforce available. And we're also asking people to come and join us on the 21st of October, where we'd really like to hear from you, to be honest. You know, we've gone through some of the most difficult, challenging times of late, and it's really good for us as a chamber to hear from the local businesses about what the issues are that you're facing and to see how we can help further. So if you'd like to join us on the 21st, I'm conscious there's no time on there, but I'm sure it's available on our website. I'm hoping it's the afternoon, Jane, or are you making me have another early start? I don't know.
I think it is.
Afternoon, yeah. So that's so we can do the school runs and that and still come to the virtual meeting. So it'd be good to see people there. All our events are online, and you can find out all the details on our website. We meet regularly once a month for a first Tuesday, and the next one's on the 3rd of November. Those are more general networking events. We will break off into little rooms so everyone will have a chance to talk to each other and get to know each other better. And our focus for the November is going to be on local retail, mainly because I think Jane and I wanted to have a steer on what we can buy for Christmas. But it's a good time to support local organisations, and obviously retail's had an awful time of it. So we're going to be hearing from the Shopping City in Runcorn. And also we've got another more local witness-based retailer who started up this year to tell us a little bit about their experiences and what they're able to offer at the moment. So hopefully everyone will be able to join us. And just let you know, any business support that you are looking for, please do get in touch with us. Whatever it is, we will do our best to find the right solution for your business. One of the schemes that Brendan didn't mention, which has just started, is the Kickstart Scheme. This is really all about supporting young people into jobs. Obviously, COVID's affected everyone, but the younger generation particularly. So what this allows us to do is, if you employ a young person, you get 6 months of minimum wage to pay for up to 25 hours of their time. We've had a great response to this. The Chamber's a facilitator. So if you are interested in maybe doing this, it's going to be open for the next 12 months. And as I say, every young person that you employ through this scheme, it has to be a new job. It's not looking to replace people that have been on furlough or maybe that have been made redundant. It's all about really investing in our young people. And to help you do that, the scheme comes with £1,500 of additional training so that we can give the people who are actively looking now to start their careers the best possible help. If you'd like to know more, please do contact us. And as you can see, Helen Hessie's email is there, and she can send you out further information. So we'll also the Growth Hub, and those are our details if you want to get in touch with us. I'm just conscious we have got a little bit of time, and I just wondered, everyone's been very quiet up to now, so I just wondered if anyone had any questions or any points that they'd like to raise on the chat. I can't see the chat because I've got the presentation, Jane, so it was very quiet when I looked. Has anybody sort of commented at all?
We've not had any questions come through yet. Can we share the results of our final question?
That would be good.
Here we go. Can everyone see that one now?
So what we're really looking for is we want to make sure that these meetings that we have are tailored to your requirements. I think the VEC's done a fantastic job today, kicking off the 2020 itinerary, looking at digital, because I think everybody can probably do more on that score, and it's so vital at this very challenging time. So looking at this, skills obviously is still a key subject, and we'll look to do something around skills. And I think we've done digital expertise today, and routes to market is another one which maybe we should look at putting an event on specifically for science and manufacturers around that. We operate export documentation here at the Chamber, and we have seen some businesses cease exporting, whereas others we have seen that they're looking further afield now, so maybe not quite as much with Europe, but they're looking to other countries that maybe hadn't been quite as affected by COVID and remained more accessible. So we'll take that on board. Thank you very much. If you've got any other suggestions, please use the chat function, or you can always give me a ring or email me. We're always keen to hear from you. Has anyone got any questions while we've got the experts here? I'm just thinking, would anyone like to ask any specific questions of Brendan, Dan or Andrew? You can unmute yourself if you have got something you'd like to ask. Is that a deafening silence, Jane, do you think?
Sounds very quiet. There's no hands up either. I can't see any questions.
We're going into breakout rooms, Rachel.
Would you like to, Brendan? Be more than happy to. Would you like to? Yeah.
If there's